Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Beaver. You read the thumbnail. Let's make a mountain brandy. Now in today's video, as I just said, we're going to be making a mountain brandy. Now if you don't know what a mountain brandy or a split brandy is, it is when you take both a whiskey and a brandy and you mix them together. So we're going to get sugars from grain and we're going to get sugar from fruit. We're going to mix it all into one fermenter, let them ferment out, and then distill them. And I think that's going to be an awesome challenge during the distillation part that's going to come in part 2 of this video, where we're going to actually be distilling, because now we're going to have fruit that's going to give us nice heady flavors, and we've got whiskey that's going to give us nice tails flavors. So if you don't want to miss that part of this recipe, remember to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next video when we're going to be distilling this mountain brandy. For our grains, we're going to go with corn. Now this is pre-processed corn, so it's made from white corn, as well as our amylase part of things. We're going to be using the king corn. Now this is malted sorghum, and we're going to use this to convert the corn. But before we can get the conversion power of this going into the boiler, we first need to gelatinize our corns. Now normally when I do any type of corn and it's not pre-gelatinized, what I do is I get a little bit of amylase. Now the amylase we're going to be using is this high temperature amylase. Works best between 80 to 85 degrees centigrade. We've got our mash water here at 85, so I'm going to take a little bit of this just to assist us in the gelatinization of the corn. So the reason why I add the amylase in is when you work with corn, it tends to turn into a goopy mess, and we don't want that. So let's quickly get the corn into the boiler, get them to gelatinize. It's going to take about 60 minutes for it to gelatinize. So with the corn into our boiler, we're now going to let it ride at 80 degrees centigrade. Always keep stirring it just for a little bit so we don't have any dough balls forming. And with the amylase in there, it's not going to all stick together and become a goopy mess. As the starches gelatinize, that amylase will start breaking it down. It makes it just a lot easier when you work with this type of corn. It prevents scorching at the bottom and all that other fun stuff. Now for the exact weights and measures and the full recipe, go down into the description box below, or alternatively visit my website beaverdiy.com. The full recipe will be there with all the steps nicely typed out for you. So yeah, now this is going to sit in the boiler for about 60 to 90 minutes. I'll check it on 60, make sure everything is nice and converted, and then it's time for the next step. So I'll see you when we do the next step. With the 60 minutes now elapsed, it's time to check if we have gelatinization, or do we need to leave it for another 30 minutes. How I check if we have full gelatinization is I take the little pieces of maize and I squeeze it between my finger. If it's soft enough for me to squeeze it and it just disintegrates like good well cooked rice, then I know gelatinization of the starches has happened. And because we used the amylase while we were doing this, guess what? All the grains are nice and individual. Now it's time for part number next, and that will be our sorghum. We're going to be adding 3 kilograms of this malted sorghum into this boiler, mix it up. We're going to cover it in a blanket. Because the sorghum takes a little bit longer to convert some of the starch, it does have extra amylase in there already, but I'm going to leave it for 90 minutes. So once we are done mixing all the sorghum in, making sure we don't have any dough balls, what I'm going to do is put the lid on, wrap it in a blanket, and leave it like that for the next 90 minutes. Now sorghum takes a very long time to convert, so yeah, be patient with it. You can come every 20 or 30 minutes. Come in, give it a quick stir, just make sure everything's mixed up. But as I was watching the temperature with the thermal probe, I brought the temperature up because I don't want to overshoot it. I just want to keep it nice and in that ballpark. So I'll see you guys in 90 minutes. So with the 90 minutes elapsed, it's now time for us to pull the grain, drain as much of the liquid out as possible. We're not going to do any sparging or anything like that. because we're going to substitute whatever came out or whatever is left in the grains with a buttload of apples. But before we get to the apples and how much is a buttload, let's quickly pull the grains, get it to start draining. While it's draining, we can prep the apples. With the grain bed now draining all that nice sugary liquid down into the boiler, it's time for us to start processing the apples. Now the apples, lovely red apples, we've got 7.5 kilograms of apples to work through. I have done most of the prep already. I've quartered all the apples, and then we have liquid that we took from the boiler here because I don't want to use any additional water. So I took some of the liquid from the mash that we've just made, and we're going to use this so we can blend the apples up. So let's get started. With a shit ton of apples all processed and pulverized, this is a 10-liter bucket full of apple puree with another liter or so still in the blender. What we're going to do now is just take this bucket out so we can actually get this grain basket out and onto the floor, so we can actually add the apples into our hot liquid, get it all mixed up, put the lid on, leave it for a good couple of hours to cool down naturally, and then it's time to pitch the yeast. Stick around because we're going to do something special with the yeast. Because this is a brandy and a whiskey, we're going to do something so we can actually play on both of those flavors. So yeah, see you guys when this is all cooled down. So with this liquid cooled down to a nice crisp 30C, what we're going to do is we're going to be adding 2 different types of yeast to this. So those who have guessed it, yeah, we're going to go with a brandy yeast in the form of the bootleggers tequila and brandy yeast. So this should bring out the nice fruity esters, as well as the AM Distillers Dry Active Yeast, which is a whiskey yeast, which should play nicely with the grains inside of this. So yeah, let's hope both of those working together will give us a nice combination of flavors between the brandy as well as the whiskey. For those amongst you that wants to know what the potential alcohol by volume for this mixture is, we're sitting at a 1.060, so that's roughly between 9 and 10% ABV, depending if this ferments out completely dry. So it's time now to dump this liquid back into our boiler and get our yeast in. Now with our yeast in, all mixed up and ready to start fermenting, what we're going to do now is we're going to put the lid on, let it ride, and then ferment. Now remember, part 2, when we're going to be running this through the still to see if we have what I expect to happen, to get some nice apple and fruity flavors closer to the heads, and then our nice whiskey flavors down in the tail. So this is going to be a super interesting distillation. So hopefully you hit that subscribe button, ring the little bell icon so you get notified the moment the video gets uploaded, so you don't miss the distillation of this one in part 2 coming soon. Now, once again, all the recipes will be down in the description box or over on our website, beaverdiy.com, if you want to get the full recipe as well as the instructions. And if you stuck around this far, thank you very much for watching and have a lucky day.